Welcome, Mayor. Love having you here tonight. Um, we'll just jump right in. So you are the first LGBTQ mayor of a major city in the United States. So can you tell us what prompted you to run and about your time in office?
So, well, I am no longer in office. I've been out of office just over 8 years, but 3 terms as a city council member, term limited, 3 terms as city controller, term limited, 3 terms as mayor, term limited. Now I am banned for life because we have lifetime term limit. I mean, I think the voters kind of liked me. They kept sending me back, but term limits kicked in and had to do something else. It takes me where I am now, but I was a civic club president. I was a community activist. I just wanted to fix things in my neighborhood and in my city. And I kept running up against the city of Houston and getting frustrated. And I kid you not, I was looking at some of those council members like, is that the best they can do? Even I can do better than that. That's kind of what and it turns out I could, and enjoyed it very much. But I happen to believe that local government's the most important level of government.
Yep.
I mean, I understand the power of the presidency. I understand state government, but local government, the most important thing local government does, it gives you the water you drink, and then it takes it away when you flush the toilet, and then and picks up the trash. And if you do those 3 things, if you don't do those 3 things, then human beings cannot live in the same place together. Right. So, I'm all for a local government. And I didn't really process when I became mayor of Houston that, yes, first LGBT mayor of a top 10 US city. I was only the 10th woman in American history to lead a top 10 US city too. Lori Lightfoot, the past mayor of Chicago, was a number 12. I mean, wow. There's still glass ceilings. Karen Bass, when she got elected out in LA, was number 13. New York is the last
she
city.
Did state stuff first.
Yeah, she was the first.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways. And so we still have a lot of work to do to get not just women in the process, but into the executive positions where there's a harder glass ceiling.
Yeah.
And that's what I do now to help other people do it.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's fantastic. Well, I'm a former councilwoman myself, so local politics is definitely my jam. Yes. I work for the county now, so I do love local politics. I always say that's the place that affects your kitchen table first. So, so we've got LGBTQ plus candidates though running in record numbers right now. So do you have an idea, like, is this like a nationwide push, or is this just coincidental? Why are so many people running for office? I mean, it's just time, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I like yes, and yes. So to back up a little bit, for the last 6.5 years, I've run something called the LGBTQ plus Victory Fund and Victory Institute. And if you go to our website, victoryfund.org, victoryinstitute.org, you'll find out about us and what we do. And we were founded 33 years ago. Actually, Ellen Malcolm, the founder of Emily's List, was one of our organizing members too. So, and we're founded on the same principle as Emily's List. The idea, we're a bundling pack. We as an organization find amazing candidates, the Institute trains them, the fund endorses them, and then we share that information with people around the country. But our mission is to put LGBT plus leaders into public office. And that's all we do. We don't do policy, we don't do lobbying, we just do the people. And to your direct question, why are so many people running? Well, one, we've been for 33 years, we've been trying to convince people to run. But we all know an amazing thing happened in 2016. And it wasn't just that Hillary Clinton lost that race. Donald Trump was the best recruiter for alternative candidates you could possibly imagine. The cycle after he won, more women, more candidates of color, more LGBT candidates, more first generation Americans, just people who were, who had considered themselves outliers to American politics, looked around and said, this is not the country I want. I'm not going to take it anymore. Why isn't somebody running? If no one else is going to run, I'm going to do it. And the numbers across the board for again, unusual communities or marginalized communities, people just started running, and it hasn't slowed down because a lot of them are winning. Mm-hmm. And you get a virtuous cycle. The more people run, the more people win, the more people think, oh, I can do that. And it's very clear that no democracy works if large swaths of people are not represented. Right. A representative democracy, not everybody can be in the room where the decisions are made, but the closer you can get to having that room filled with people who look like, in our case, America, the better the outcome, the more buy-in you get from folks. And we're seeing more and more of that. And of course, we're dedicated to making sure that the numbers of LGBT folks go up. But we do a lot of research on the Victory Institute. The fund is an endorsing PAC. The Institute is a C3, and we have a lot of research over there. And because LGBT folks are part of every community, from every community, there's a lot of barrier breaking candidates who bring their intersectional selves to politics. And so if you look at the pool of candidates writ large, it's pretty white, pretty male, but our LGBT candidates are 30% more diverse than the general candidate pool, because they're coming out of every community, and they bring the different experiences. And I don't want to throw a lot of websites out at you, but victoryfund.org, victoryinstitute.org. But we also have something that is our website of record. So if you wanted to know every out LGBT elected official currently serving that we know of, go to Out for America, FOR, outforamerica.org. Mm-hmm. And you'll see the candidates, and elected officials that we track, and we constantly update the map. And the first thing that people say when they see it is that, wow, I can't believe, it's kind of like that map y'all showed at the beginning, like the dots. Yeah, we can get elected anywhere. The right candidate in the right with the right message and a good campaign can get elected anywhere. And we're dedicated to doing that.
That's fantastic. That's really great. So I think you probably have already answered why more people, why should more LGBTQ plus candidates run for office? I think you've answered that, because looking like America. And
well, the other thing is that the biggest surge has been in trans candidates. Why is that? Because if you're under attack and you have an ounce of self-respect, you're going to want to stand up and speak out. And so the more the hard right, and Victory is a nonpartisan organization. We do endorse LGBT Republicans, but the more the hard right comes down on the trans community, the more trans candidates who step up and say, no, I'm, let me speak for myself. And they win. Yes. And I, like I said, that's, I'm all for this. I think it's great. I do, because I do think that our government should be representative of all of us. So, so have you seen a change in the level of support for LGBTQ plus candidates in the past few years? Absolutely. And again, we've been doing the work for a long time, and successfully electing candidates for a long time, but in the last few, particularly support for trans candidates. Now, as an organization, we're the only national organization in the LGBT space that does down ballot races. Most of the other organizations, national organizations, they're focused on Congress. They're policy shops, and it's about making sure that that they get in with the members of Congress. We do school boards, we do city councils, we do water control boards. We did a mosquito control board in South Florida a few years ago. Wow. Same year that Pete Buttigieg was running for president, we endorsed Pete, and we endorsed a mosquito control board candidate. And because that's an elected position. It's an elected position because, you know, mosquitoes in
Wow.
South Florida, it's a public safety
Oh, okay.
commission.
Okay.
But you know, do I think that a mosquito control board member in South Florida is going to have a big impact on people's lives? Well, in that district, maybe, but it's an entry level position. We believe in the pipeline. People start where they are passionate and where they are drawn to politics, and then we hope they move up. I mean, I started as a council member. I was kind of pushed out, so I moved up. A lot of us do that, and we want to keep, you know, feeding the pipeline. And it's, no one will vote for you because you're LGBT. Maybe your mother, I don't know, your girlfriend, your boyfriend, whatever. But people don't vote for you because, and there are people who will vote against you because you're LGBT. But what we've discovered is that people just want, they want a reason to let you in. They want a reason to work with you or vote for you. And there's this weird, as someone who, I've been on the ballot 11 times personally, so I know a little bit about connecting to voters. And there's some weird alchemy that kind of goes, if you will be honest with me about something that is shocking or disturbing or I don't approve of, I believe you'll probably be honest with me about other things as well. And I want candidates that'll tell me the truth.
Yeah. Transparency.
Transparency, honesty, transparency, integrity. Now, in a complete perversion of everything I just said, if you look at a lot of the people who support Donald Trump, that's what they tell you. He tells it like it is. He's real. He's on. No, he makes stuff up all the time.
Yes.
But the perception is, our candidates, on the other hand, are open and honest about their lives because it's important to them, and voters respond to that. The fact that, you know, there's an out trans representative in Missoula, Montana, or Nashville, Tennessee, or Minneapolis is proof that, you know, anywhere in the country, again, the right person with the right message, people want to know who you are and what you can do, and they'll respond to that. Our job as an organization is to make sure they have the resources to have that conversation, because you have to have the conversation.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So who are people that we should be watching this year? Some top candidates around the country.
So, well, there are always a lot of there's always a lot of congressional candidates. I'll tell you, 2 years ago, we tracked, I think, 110 out congressional candidates. We endorsed, I believe, 13 non-incumbent ones. So there's, you know, we will work with anyone who wants an opportunity to run for office. We help train candidates, but that doesn't mean we're going to endorse them. But this year, you know, we have an amazing opportunity. Speaking of, you know, non-traditional candidates, Sarah McBride running in Delaware. Was a Delaware state rep, became a Delaware state senator, now running for Congress. Would be the first transgender member of Congress. You can any of the candidates I mentioned, if you go to victoryfund.org, you'll see information about them. She's just a phenomenal public servant and really, really great candidate, and it will be a barrier breaker when she wins. Maryland, Joe Vogel, he's like a 20-something who is running for Congress. He is Uruguayan. She's like, okay, I guess there are not very many Uruguayan elected officials in the United States, but you know, that's where his family's from, and he would be one of the youngest, like the second youngest member of Congress when he's elected in the fall. Julie Johnson in Dallas area, she's running for Colin Allred's congressional seat, and it's just she was a member of the state house here in Texas for multiple terms, and cleared the field in the primary. She will have a Republican opponent, but she is a strong and amazing candidate. You know, I mentioned I'm rolling off all these congressional candidates. because even though I said we're the ones that do down ballot, but those are sort of the marquee candidates. But right now in Houston, I'm in my home in Houston. We have one candidate running for the state house, and Lauren Ashley Simmons, and another running for the state senate, Molly Cook. They're both what we consider spotlight candidates. We're like putting a lot of resources behind them. Lauren Ashley Simmons is running against a Democrat who came out on the wrong side of the trans votes, the anti-trans votes that took place in the state house, and community, the sort of the Democratic community writ large, they come out to try to take her out, and her primary, Sean Theory, her primary source of funding has been from hard right Republicans, and so it's a proxy fight down here for how the Democrats and Republicans feel about trans issues. Molly Cook is a emergency room nurse who's running, and I'll be frank, I actually looked at running in that seat and decided I am spoiled. Local government, I just couldn't do it. But Democrats in the state house, Democrat in the state senate here in Texas, they can't pass things. You're always playing defense. And I love the fact that Molly's willing to go up there. I was not. Molly's willing to go up there and do that. She's going to be amazed. She's a fierce champion for progressive causes. So, a lot of great candidates out there. And in fact, since we have something about, I think we're about 160 candidates we've endorsed so far this year, and many more to come. Again, our website's the best place to see who they are and where they are.
Okay. All right. So why do you think, though, that, these bills, all these anti-LGBTQ plus bills are coming out across the country? I know here in Ohio, we've got stuff that, something was blocked today, which was good. I don't know how long it'll stay blocked, but one of the judges in the county where I work, blocked a bad bill. So I just like, where is all this coming from all of a sudden?
So, well, they're not just springing up spontaneously. They are being pumped out by right-wing think tanks. They tend to pass in one place and then they metastasize to the next place. The right shares a boilerplate language, and it's easy to demonize a community that is not so visible, largely unknown. I don't think there's anybody in America who can legitimately say they don't know somebody who's gay or lesbian.
Right.
I mean, personally know somebody either in the family or your dry cleaner or the person who cut your hair, whatever. But the vast majority of Americans, that can't be said for trans folks. And so, it's a lack of familiarity and comfort, but it's also very deliberate targeting. And the fact that so many of these bills are about, it started out with bathroom access, and now it's the totally made up issue of
sports,
gender-affirming sports and gender-affirming care. I will say that on the sports issue, we want fairness in sports, and I was an athlete in college. I get that, but it's not decided. It shouldn't be decided by legislators. It should be decided by the governing bodies of those sports, best positioned to understand how to level the playing field for the athletes they represent. And and then the whole bathroom hysteria. For me, what does it mean to live in a first world country? You have fresh water, you have clean toilets, and you have air conditioning. Woo! Right. Okay, clean toilets right up there. And the idea, and that most basic of human functions, that some people should be barred from safe places, because women on this call, the bathrooms I go into have stalls. I don't care what's going on in the next stall, but I guarantee you a very feminine presenting a trans woman trying to go into a male restroom in a lot of places would be in danger. This is just simple courtesy and dignity. And so they started there, they went to sports, and now it's this made up issue on that thousands of trans kids across the country are being mutilated in hospitals. It's just not true.
Right.
But people, where do you find the information? It just keeps coming out, and I mean, these are the same legislators who believe that they're kids who are pretending to be cats and using litter boxes in schools. So, hello.
Yeah. I mean, that's that's some of the most ridiculous stuff I've heard. We for those of you who have not been to one of our misinformation, disinformation trainings, make sure that the next time that we have one of those that you do come to hear how to combat that kind of information. But what would you say to somebody who's actually considering running but kind of holding back due to the political climate we have these days?
Okay, so first of all, I would say that politics is not a genteel occupation. It is a blood sport. It is always a blood sport. It has been a blood sport since the beginning of our country. That hasn't changed. And you have to be able to weather attacks and hold the course. What has changed, and again, my first race was in 1991, so I've been doing this a while. What has changed is social media. If you, for your sanity, you need to stay away from it, stay away from it. It is toxic. It used to be the joke, don't read the comments. Now it's just like, don't engage with social media. It is like someone says, it's like an abusive relationship. But the elements of campaigning is not brain surgery. We do, but it's not intuitive necessarily either. So, we spend a lot of resources training candidates, and we work with a lot of organizations. We'll send candidates with, we'll share candidates with New American Leaders or Emily's List or Honor Pack. If they have a Latino LGBT candidate, they may send them to us for training. We may, but we sort of try to cross-pollinate as much as we can. And if you go to our Victory Institute website, we've done a number of surveys of hundreds of candidates. We just finished one for 2 years ago. We did one. We had several hundred women candidates, and their experiences on the campaign trail. And okay, let's be honest, it can sometimes really suck. And women are they'll start by talking about how you look or how much you weigh or how you dress, and then they goes to threats of violence really quickly. Get ready for it, prepare for it, and go, motor through it. And look at some of the data, look at some of the stories, like look at our survey. No, you're not alone, but you can't let them win.
Right.
Cannot let them win. And as someone who is, as I said, I've been on the ballot 11 times. I have been only once in all of that time has anyone directly confronted me to my face. Most of them are cowards. I mean, I've been gay baited. I've had attack mail distributed. Actually, when I was a council member, when I was mayor, there was a guy who would show up on the steps of City Hall every Friday at noon and blow a shofar, call on God to strike me dead, and God didn't do it. But here's no, God didn't do it. Apparently, I'm still here. But here's the rest of the story. I tried really hard. Houston's fourth largest city in America, 2.3 million people. I would try to get out with people as much as I could. And I would, one month I'd do a teletown hall, next month I'd do a web chat, then I'd do 3 minutes with the mayor in a library where I'd spend an all afternoon. Anybody who wanted to come in. And one day the guy with the shofar guy came to the library where I was, hanging out, 3 minutes with me, signed in. He had his kid with him. He actually brought his shofar, and my security detail wouldn't let him bring it near me. But he had his kid with him. He had a legitimate issue. And for all the problems he apparently had with me because I'm a lesbian, he wanted to talk to me as mayor. And so I, dealt with him as mayor. And that's what we need to get to.
Yeah. Wow. Did he still come with the
Yes,
shofar?
came right back out the next week.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, but
Well, that's not surprising to me at all. Not even a little bit. You have given a lot of great resources. Will you give that information to Julie so that when she sends out the email following this, folks will have the information on where anybody who's interested in running can get resources and
I
training.
would really,
and
yeah,
some
I
of the other
really,
stuff.
and I'll do particularly the links to some of the research. And let me tell you, I have done trainings I helped teach it for Emily's List, for Annie's List here in Texas, for our organization. Women want to be trained. They want to know they're welcome, and they want to know the rules. And we're happy to do that. And there are a number of other organizations that are happy to do that as well. And it actually, basic campaigning, you could learn it from any number of organizations. What is different? Organizations that work with women can help you take your narrative as a woman, your life experience as a woman, and bring that to the message you want to convey to voters. We do that with LGBT candidates, particularly with trans candidates, helping them create the narrative of why your life experience is relevant to running. But at some point, it's just a matter of jumping off the edge into the deep end of the water. You will learn how to swim. And what is the worst thing that happens if you run? Basically, you lose. That's the worst thing. The vast majority of people who run for office lose. I mean, think of all the people who are in these multi-candidate races. Most of them lose. Most of them never run again. There's nothing shameful about losing if you ran a good race and you articulated the issues and you tried your hardest. But then you need to pick yourself up and do it again and learn from it. And that's what I really hope people will do. That it is, the campaigning is not fun, but the opportunity to be, if you're a Hamilton fan, be in the room where it happens.
Yes.
Be there and make
the door says behind me.
Yeah.
Nothing like it. Oh, I was going to say, whenever you get it, we actually have a lot of questions in the chat. So
I know. I just circled back to one. I got them right here. Or did you write them down?
I did. I wrote them down.
Oh, okay. Well, then.
Well, I will start with, this was at the very beginning, so I'm not sure if it was answered, but it was looking back, I'm assuming at your elections, what would you have done differently? Or I guess, past reflections.
Well, and I just see someone just popped up. I actually lost my first two races. I ran in 91 and I ran in 95. And I curled up into a fetal position after both of those. What's the worst that can happen is you lose. And respectfully to, I know there's some guys on the call, men tend to lose, and what they do is they say, what is wrong with those people? They were not paying attention. They weren't listening. And women tend to lose, and we say, what was wrong with me? And I did that. And but I then figured out what I needed to do. The raising money and a number of other things that made me a successful candidate. And then I won 9 consecutive citywide races in Houston. So it's the step up and do it. Step up and do it. And so to the question about I lost my first race, but I didn't stop. This is important. I'm sorry, what was the other question?
The original question was like, was there anything I guess you would have done
I would
differently?
have done
Or
differently,
like,
yeah. My first
lessons
race,
learned?
I ran against a well-liked moderate incumbent as part of a redistricting effort. And it's really hard to take out an incumbent, particularly when you agree with them on most of the issues. So I would not have done that. Had I to do that again. Now, there's a lot of things I would have done over things I did while I was in office, in hindsight. But as a candidate, that the first race was a mistake, and I got talked into it, and I wasn't emotionally ready, and so it took me 4 years afterwards to like get up off the couch. I lost my second race too, but it only took me a year to get back up off the couch because that was my choice, my decision, and I said to myself, "You asked for this, so get better," and I did.
All right. Well, this question is actually directed to both you and Julie, since you've both been elected officials. And the question was, how do you confront or deal with the egos and the stubbornness of colleagues, especially those who may be racist, homophobic, just all the not great traits?
Yes, but you're not there to be surrounded by people who agree with you. You're there to make things happen, and you figure out. I mean, incremental progress. Compromise is the soul of government, and you have to know going in the things on which you will not compromise, and the things on which you will, and the things that they're not your priority issues, and so you're willing to just roll up your sleeves and get it done. I will say that I would always rather work with someone who disagrees with me fundamentally on just about everything, but who will tell me the truth, than someone who agrees with me on almost everything, but you can't depend on them when it comes to the crunch. And then, the people of integrity, you'll eventually get someplace where you can make progress. What about Julie?
I had a fellow council member who wouldn't speak to me for the first 12 months I was on council. Now, in fairness and in full disclosure, I tried to recall him. So he was mad. He was very, very mad. So he spent 12 months. If I talked to him, he would talk to somebody else. He would answer the question sometimes, most of the time, but he would not look at me. He would not acknowledge my presence. So I did go through that because it was a small town, and I was their first African American, and really they're only still to this day. It's an adjacent town to here, a council member. So, you do what you have to do. I was there to do a job. I wasn't there to talk to him necessarily anyway. So I just kept it moving.
Yeah, you have to keep it moving. But, I try to give people, there's certain things you can't compromise on, but other things, if someone is saying something that I think is out of ignorance, I'll try to, talk to them behind the scenes and work it out. If they're coming after me, I will go after them.
Next question is, I guess the question is, what do you look for in a candidate to make the decision if someone's going to be endorsed or not endorsed?
First of all, you have to have it has to be a winnable race on its face. You've never run for office before, you've never raised money, you have zero name ID, and you're going to run for the US Senate in Florida or Texas. Even if you're a Republican, that's not going to work. If you're a Democrat, yeah. It doesn't matter how many candles you light. And so on its face, is it something that is achievable? And then if it is something that's achievable, are you the right fit? Are you the right candidate? And then finally, are you willing to put a campaign together and make it happen? There's a lot of, we work with thousands of candidates to get to the few hundred that we endorse, because we provide a range of services whether or not we endorse them. And two things happen. I wish I had $1 for every time someone has said to me over the years that they want to run for office someday. No one cares that you want to run for office. That's your ego. what people want to know is, what do you want to do? And until you figured out what you want to do, you shouldn't be running for anything. I served as a council member with people who ran, they could get elected to city council, so they ran for city council, but they wanted to be in Congress. And the issues they cared about were, foreign policy, things like that. And they were terrible council members, because city council is trash pickup and potholes and barking dogs, and neighborhood disputes, noise issues, just, and they were bored out of their minds, and they were terrible council members because it didn't match what they wanted to work on. So know what you want to do, and then is this a race that's achievable? And then you have to be willing to put the work into a campaign. The hardest working person in a political campaign has to be the candidate. You don't get magically gifted. The other thing that a lot of times it happens is, if you are wealthy enough, if you are wealthy enough to be able to self-fund your campaign, the tendency is to do that, because most of us don't like to go ask for money. Fundraising is terrible. 3 times in 6 years, I had to raise over $4 million from my mayor's races. See, Houston's a big city and a big media market. A lot of dollar for dollars. I know whereof I speak. But what happens is that if you self-fund, you do not give people an opportunity to invest in you. I mean, if you go to the racetrack and you put a $2 bet on the horse, you actually cheer louder than if you're just sitting there watching. You've made an investment. You are you want to see the outcome, and you're not allowing people to do that. And you're also creating the impression in people's minds that, well, you don't need them. You're not going to be responsive to them. And so, there's a connectedness that you have to have in order to run.
Somebody brought up in the chat, just in Ohio, where Julie and I are, is that, the tactic that was done in several counties when there was a transgender candidate running, they pulled you didn't disclose the dead name. And that just became kind of a tactic and different counties handled it different ways. I think my question out of that is just like, what other tactics like that are you seeing across the country to try to, prevent candidates from actually running and winning?
Actually, my organization, we just did a candidate training this last weekend in Charlotte, North Carolina. And we had 35 people from across the country in a room for 4 days, learning the nuts and bolts of campaigning. And one of the first things we tell people, the folks in Ohio were misusing an old law, for a purpose not intended. But what I say to them is, what we say is, know the rules. Know the rules better than anybody else. We lose great candidates every year, not just Victory, but across the country, of people who they don't pay attention to the filing deadlines. They don't put their paperwork in appropriately. There's they don't do their financial disclosures. Know the rules. What we're talking about in Ohio, the law is a fair law, and that is to prevent people from changing their name and hiding past criminal records and so forth, or committing fraud to get on the ballot. I mean, a lot of people change, it's kind of strange, but people change their name to get, to have a better ballot name. There's one of our candidates, Jeff Prang, who is the tax assessor in LA County. A guy ran against him the last time he was on the ballot, and it was like, John Lower Taxes Lee. Changed his name to, made a ballot name of Lower Taxes. Okay, the stupid stuff happens, and so they have laws against suddenly changing your name, and so that you don't commit fraud. And what they did in Ohio is they dusted off this perfectly legit law and used it to take trans candidates who had legitimately changed their names through the appropriate processes and had them removed from the ballot, which is cruel and manipulation of the process, but legal, apparently. So know the rules and be prepared. And it's don't commit politics politics thinking that someone's going to cut you slack.
Mhm.
That's the truth there for sure. Question about like funding for Victory Fund funding, like just how do you get funding for this? And then how much financial support do candidates get from your organization if they're running?
That's a really good question. As an organization, our annual budget is about $10 million a year between and it's like 60-40 from the C3 side, and then to the PAC 527 PAC Victory Fund side. But we're a bundling PAC, so a big chunk of that PAC money is bundlers donating as a pass through to candidates. So if you go to our website and you see all the candidates lined up there and there's a candidate link, we don't take a cut of that. We go out and fundraise to run the operation. We find the candidates, we put the candidate information out there, and then we ask donors across the country to invest in the candidates that they're most interested in. I mean, we have donors who go through and they'll vote for, they'll send money to candidates of color or school board candidates or candidates in the South. And, that's, so we're a platform for that. So several $1 million of the budget goes directly, we don't touch it. It goes straight to the candidates, but we disclose it as a bundling PAC. And then we also we're a federal PAC and a super PAC. We do independent expenditure campaigns. We have been accused of being dark money. And okay, we're proud of it. We get great candidates elected.
Oh yeah, I've seen comments about the things that Red, White, and Blue funds, and I'm like, what? We don't fund them. Like, we're a nonprofit. We're not giving their money away. I liked this question. How do LGBTQ plus candidates campaign authentically, but not have, the entire campaign be built around their status? They commented that Danica Rome did this very well in Virginia. But I can see the media and the pundits wanting to make that like the focus of your campaign. So how do you campaign authentically?
Well, so first, the more of us who run, it's not sexy or exciting anymore after a while. And then it's about candidate discipline. Danica Rome was the first, not the first trans candidate elected. There were a couple of others elected the same night, but the first member of a legislature elected. Danica Rome ran on Route 28, just major road in her area of Virginia. And that's all she talked about. She knocked on doors, and that was the #1 issue for her voters. And she talked about Route 28. And it didn't matter how many times the media talked about Danica Rome, trans candidate running for delegate. It was every time she was interviewed, talked about, I'm running because I want to do this, this, and this. We're going to fix Route 28. And then when she got elected, she talked to her constituents over and over again about what she was doing on Route 28. And then when she accomplished it, she went back and told them about it and kept being reelected. I was a lesbian activist in the 70s and the 80s. By the time the first 2 times I ran for office, the 2 losing races, the first 2 times I ran for office, every time I saw my name in print, it was Annise Parker, lesbian activist. I was like, we didn't use the L very much back then. The Annise Parker, gay activist running for city council. And, that was how I was publicly identified over and over again. And it was hard to break through and get other data points in front of people. And so I know exactly, what the issue is. The third time I ran, one of the things I did 2 things. One, I had to raise enough money to make sure that my message got out, that other people weren't talking about me. I was actually, I was up on TV, I was doing advertising. And the other thing I did was I actually went to I'm dating myself. There were 2 daily papers and 3 TV stations. And I made a portfolio of the coverage from my first 2 races. And I ran again in 97 and won. And I sat down with the editorial staff of the 2 papers and the TV stations. And I said, I want you to look at the coverage of my last 2 races. And every time you referred to me, you referred to me as a lesbian activist. I worked for Republican oil man Robert Mossbacher, and I have for, at that time, it was 18 years. But you talk about what my opponents do for a living. What you talk about, for me, it's that I'm a lesbian. I don't mind if you talk about whether they're heterosexual or not. I don't mind if you talk about what they do as a volunteer, as long as you treat us fairly and you are not being accurate as journalists and you're not being fair. And then when I ran that third time, the coverage changed. And they would figure out a way to mention it, but it wasn't my last name. It wasn't the number one identifier that the media used. And it is important to make sure that you do what you have to do to like get your platform out. And there are people all the time who run to make a point. They want to raise an issue. They're on a tear about something. There's nothing wrong with that, but you're not going to win your race. In order to win your race, you have to talk about issues that resonate with voters, and whatever you need, whatever you must do in order to make sure that your message isn't. They may reject your message, but you as a candidate have the responsibility to get that out there. And we don't. I mean, again, we work with lots and lots of candidates. We don't expect them to like put an L or a G on their forehead or like a big sign, hey, vote for me, I'm gay. But what we want is for candidates who will be honest about their lives and be authentic, because why we do the work, even an unsuccessful campaign can change hearts and minds. It can move the ball down the field. It provides, you're a role model, you're an inspiration, you raise an issue that no one else may have thought to raise. And the next person picks up the torch and can carry it forward farther. So there's all different ways to be out. What we want is people to be honest.
You were talking, well, we were talking about Danica Rome, and one of the questions in the chat was, are there any challenges or issues that are specifically faced, you think, by transgender candidates?
Absolutely. I mean, there's ignorance. The level of ridicule and the trolling on social media. I mean, it's bad for women, but for trans candidates, particularly trans women, it's off the charts. A lot of our trans candidates have already suffered economic hardship by going through transitions. They may have been disconnected from their families, so the road is harder. And then often their opponents. I mean, Danica Rome, her opponent, Bob Marshall, we were the organization that dubbed him Bigot Bob, and he was proud of it. And he talked about it. He's, I'm the biggest homophobe in Virginia. Okay, so we called him Bigot Bob every time we sent out something on her behalf. And he constantly misgendered Danica. And Danica just dealt with it with dignity and didn't go there. And he just more and more isolated himself, because he was talking about a man in a dress and she was talking about Route 28. On the surprising connection, on the same night that Danica was elected, we helped elect Andrea Jenkins in Minneapolis. Andrea Jenkins is a Black trans council member we also, Philippe Cunningham, also Black, Andrea Jenkins, trans woman, Philippe Cunningham, trans man, both elected the same night as council members in Minneapolis. And when George Floyd was murdered, he was murdered in Andrea Jenkins' district. And the face that people in Minneapolis saw, and the face that many of us around the country saw, trying to keep her district from coming apart at the seams, trying to help people heal, trying to work through the anguish and the anger and the riots and everything else, was a Black transgender woman who had already, I mean, Andrea's an amazing person, had already been through the fire. She knew who she was. She knew what was needed. She was unafraid, and she was the perfect person in that moment, help them move forward and heal. We have to be a part of those conversations. We have to be in those spaces. And sometimes we are the best person to stand up.
Absolutely. We have 2 minutes left, so there is one last question I'm trying to get. Like I said, people had a lot of questions. Trying to get through all of them.
They can, you know, if somebody really wants more information, go to the website. They can reach me. They can reach other members of our organization. If they've wanted to run for office and they're part of the LGBTQ community, reach out to us. We'd love to have you in one of our trainings. And we can also refer you over to some of Emerge, again, other organizations that do training for women. We're happy to hand you off too.
Yeah, that's great. And I know that we do have some people in the chat who are running, or either running for re-election or running for office. So the last question that I'm going to ask is just that one of the people here says that they are on a board of a fairly new LGBTQ pride organization, and they're trying to start fundraising. And so obviously you guys do a lot of that. So just looking for advice on like how a small org may be able to kind of launch fundraising efforts.
It's the same way that a candidate launches fundraising efforts. First, you start with people you know, and you ask what you think they can afford, and then you move on, and then you come back and you ask them again, and then you move on and you come back and ask them again. But you always start. You don't start with cold calls. You start with people who know you and know your work ethic, know the mission, know the credibility of your organization. You know, you got to start with the people who have eyes on, and then you build out the circle. It works for candidates. It works for organizations.
Looking forward to getting the links and things that you're going to send to Julie. And, you know, again, just thank you so much.